Women entrepreneurs, what does it take to be successful as a woman in business? If you're a woman, you likely already know the challenges and struggles business women face every day. But on today's podcast, we're going to learn how to be successful as a female entrepreneur. Today, we'll talk with Susan Reff and Tracy Hightower-Henne, partners of the law firm Hightower Reff Law in Omaha, Nebraska, about how they've managed to not only find success as entrepreneurs, but how they've done it in their way, sticking to their values, passion for important issues, and creating their own incredible success story in a male-dominated industry. Welcome to Lift Your Future, a podcast that teaches you coping skills through stories, methods, and proven techniques to improve relationships and outcomes in your personal and professional life. I'm Nicole Winkler, a licensed therapist and executive coach. On this podcast, we'll share relatable life experiences designed to help you grow. I will provide easy, practical ways to develop thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to impact your life, both personally and professionally. My goal is simple: to help you lift your future. Well, welcome to Lift Your Future podcast, ladies. Today I'm here with Tracy and Susan with Hightower Reff Law. And I'm honored to meet both of you. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We're excited.
I'm excited. So jumping right in, if you could share with me and with our listeners a little bit about your law firm and how you got into the type of law that you both do. I find it fascinating. So I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. So this year we're celebrating our 10th year of Hightower Reff Law being in existence. So that's really exciting. And currently we have 9 attorneys. And we have 10 staff people that work for us. And it's when we started, it was Tracy and I and one other attorney and one staff person.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of where we've come from for the past 10 years.
So building a business,
Yes.
not just a kind of a practice with the 2 of you or 3 people. You've built a business.
Yes.
Yeah, we mean business.
Yeah. I can tell.
Yeah, so it's really funny. Susan and I met each other as solo practitioners. So she was doing criminal defense and I was doing a lot of family law, which the funny backstory is when I first went out on my own doing family law, the very first divorce I finished, I said, I'm never doing another divorce again. And that was probably 500 divorces ago,
At least.
11 or 12 years ago. So
That changed.
Divorce is something that you either are really good at and you can put aside someone else's trauma and not internalize it and then really feel good helping that person through that really difficult time in their life. And then you also get really good at identifying property and helping with suggestions of debts and assets and like that sort of boring stuff. But I think that feeling of helping someone through something that is like, can be very awful.
Catastrophic.
Yeah, I mean, the stories that we hear about our clients are like, oh God, I didn't think I could beat the one I just heard last year. This is like now the most awful story I've heard. And I think there's a point, it's sort of like a bell curve as a family law attorney that you can either get over that hump of, burnout and things like that because you can figure out how to put aside someone's, really hardship times and help them. But there's that crossover of not internalizing and feeling bad for them, but really working to like help them to get independent.
Yes. So in therapy, we call it countertransference. Yeah. If I'm triggered by something, that a client says, or, we aren't supposed to take on people's stuff. And if we do, I would teach my students, like, okay, if something comes up for you, you write it in the top corner of your notes, really tiny, and you circle it. And that is your reminder to go back and address that yourself. Whether you go see a therapist, whether you talk to a colleague about it, supervisor, something.
Yeah.
But it's a very similar kind of concept. Otherwise,
I'm getting my calendar out. Can you come talk to our attorneys, please?
Let's book that after the show.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Because that is such a critical, important piece with it. You hear so many awful things. And then also I think we live in this world of there's a bad guy and a good guy.
Yeah.
Right. And I, I'll say this with couples, with breakups, with, child custody things. When I've worked with clients, it's like, not everybody is, it's not that they're bad or that you're good or that you're bad or that they're good. Some people just don't grow together.
Right.
And some people grow apart. That is the reality. And so being, coming to terms with that.
Yeah.
And judges don't look at divorces as one person is a bad person and one person is the good person. They look at it as both of these people are good people. They can't be together anymore. Let's see what we can do to separate things and be fair. But our clients really want us to make sure we're painting the other person as the bad person.
So the thing with our firm too is we really describe our practice areas without naming what they are as all practice areas that help an individual person as opposed to a company. We do help people form businesses and things like that, but we do family law, criminal defense, estate planning, workers' compensation, immigration. And when we first started, we only did family law and criminal defense.
Okay.
And then we brought in another attorney who does estate planning because those three areas really overlapped a lot. You get a divorce, you need a new will. You get a DUI, maybe you're getting a divorce, or you get a divorce and then you get a DUI. And then we started seeing, how bringing in more practice areas can really help the same person inside the same office.
Absolutely. Because we're multifaceted. Humans are.
Yes.
We are very multifaceted, and you can't specialize in everything, especially with law.
Right.
I don't know a lot about law, but I do know that you have to specialize in one area. Yeah. And so you have this partnership where you can serve all of your clients that come through the door in whatever phase of life they may be in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those, talking about divorce and talking about immigration, talking about some of these topics, criminal law, those are kind of hot button topics sometimes, especially depending on who you're defending. I worked in a penitentiary for many years, and so I know, kind of the stigma sometimes that is associated with someone that is facing legal charges.
Yeah.
So how did you, decide that was what you wanted to do? I'm going to deal with these kind of harder, I guess, I don't know if they're easier or harder practices of law, but I would guess those might be a little more challenging just in the societal picture.
Well, so before Tracy and I were partners, I was a public defender. So I only defended people charged with crimes. And I got asked a lot, how can you defend those people? And how can you do that kind of work? And I was kind of in that space we just talked about where I was learning how to separate myself and not internalize and learning to be an attorney at the same time. And I was like, what are you talking about, those people? Those people could be your sister, your brother, your mom, your dad, your coworker. Like, people get charged with crimes like pretty regularly. And the stuff that I was doing was as simple as like driving without insurance on your car, to a car accident, to shoplifting, even though I was a public defender, my clientele was a diverse clientele.
Very.
So, thinking that it only happens to other people is absolutely incorrect.
Have you ever got a ticket?
Yes.
Doing what?
Well, my very first ticket I ever got, I think I was speeding. And funny.
But how fast? This either makes you cool or not.
I don't remember what I was speeding, but I was speeding through a residential neighborhood because I was late to my dentist appointment. And I was in college, and I was late. I hated being late. And back then, I'm better. I'm late a lot now. But back then, and I didn't want to be late. And I remember, I probably slept a little too late or whatever. And the guy, I was like, I am going to the dentist. Like, don't give me a ticket. Come on. I'm doing a good thing.
But you got a ticket.
I got a ticket. And I've gotten tickets I think I've gotten a couple more speeding tickets, but not a lot, like maybe 3 total in my whole life. And then I got
one.
Yeah.
One.
I got a ticket for running a red light. Like I went through it and it was like yellow and then it went to red. And then when I was in college, I got an MIP ticket because I was at a big party and everybody got busted by the cops. And I had been drinking beer and I was 19.
I watched my brother and sister get back-to-back MIPs. They were literally standing like this, and I really wanted to take a picture of it. We were at a graduation party, and they were 18 and 20, and I was 24, and my parents had just left. We were at a friend's house, like a long-time family friend. bad. I mean, and it was a really sad deal, but there was amusement in that for me. I wanted a picture of it. But to your point, we've all done something that we could have gotten in trouble for.
Yeah.
And I would say that as well to people. And they're like, how can you do treatment, mental health and substance abuse treatment for people that are locked up and they're criminals? And you're like, they're people too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't you want them to be better?
Yeah.
I mean, like, hopefully they get something out of their time.
Yes. And so I always teach my kids, I always try to teach my kids, you're not bad. That choice was not not a good choice. That was a bad choice. So it's about their behavior and not necessarily about them. And so there was a time many years ago where I got dinner ready for the kids after daycare, and they're like 3 and 2. We're outside playing. And it was like chicken breast and pizza up on the countertop. It's cooling off. We come back in to eat, and there's no food at all. Our dog ate all of it. And so I was like, get outside. Like, you are a bad dog, Luke. And, he goes outside, and my now 9-year-old, she was like 3 or 4 at the time, she said, Mommy, he's not a bad dog. He made a bad choice. And I was like, oh my God, you do listen.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the human experience as well. We make choices.
Yes.
And not all of them serve us. Or some that used to serve us don't serve us anymore.
Right.
And so being able to set those boundaries.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for other business owners about addressing difficult topics in the workplace, being true to themselves and their values, without shifting the culture into kind of a negative culture?
So we just did a huge part of our strategic planning was spelling out our values and literally putting them on paper and defining them, and then also having an accountability piece to that. And so we probably spent approximately a year on it, because there was a break in between with COVID and whatever. But we had all 20 of our attorneys and staff have input on this and our values. And some big pieces came out of that, like people want a problem addressed right away. Like, let's not let it simmer and, wait to talk about it until later. People want to be their authentic selves, in how they show up and represent clients. And so we really found from this work that having input from everyone is really important. We don't make all the decisions or all the ideas don't come from us either. And like, I just had someone come to me this morning and say, there's this discrepancy between these two policies. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you for pointing that out.
You're right.
That it was not intended. And so we do the best we can as 2 people, but we have 20 people, and trying to also have the idea that we're an open door. We want, everyone's input, but recognizing that people can be nervous about coming forward too. But now that we have this thing where we can say, okay, we have this issue, we have this decision to make, we have this question to answer, let's pull out our value sheet and say, like, how does this decision fit in with those values?
Absolutely. I love that. And then have you done your personal core values as well?
We haven't.
So that's like another step I do with some organizations with their leadership team. Everybody identifies their own personal core values. And then how do those fit in or not fit in with the company core values? And where are you going to see some misalignment, and therefore maybe, with motivation or incentivizing certain employees? For example, one of my core values personally is family. And so if I have an employee that doesn't necessarily care about their family, or I believe they treat them, unfairly or not very well, I'm going to have probably a personal issue with that employee or that coworker. But that helps me figure out where I can be more aligned and set better boundaries for myself.
Yes.
So that's kind of just like another iteration of that. But I also hear that you value all of your staff's opinions and that everybody has a voice, and there's probably not a topic off limits.
No, and when we to piggyback this with that culture thing is, if someone comes to us and they have an idea, we're going to think of, there's no immediate no. There's no, we do the research. We see, can we do this? Does it work? Does it, not only align with values, but also work in our business model and fit into our culture and all of those other things. Some of the best things that have ever happened at our law firm are staff ideas, and make the staff feel heard. I mean, just making them, know that they can. And I think that makes it easier for them to bring those ideas to us or bring issues that are problems.
Absolutely.
If they know, well, last time I talked to them, it worked out really well and they heard me. And so this time, even this is a harder thing to talk about, but I feel more comfortable because I've done it before.
Trust.
Yeah.
Trust within the team, trust within people that you work with. It's like the foundation of a good team.
Yeah.
Have you read The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team?
No.
That's one of my favorite books on teams, just because it does talk about that. If you don't trust each other, how are you going to have each other's backs? How are you going to be able to have difficult conversations? Conflict is not bad. Conflict is actually a good thing. That's when things can get worked out. It's how you have conflict.
Right.
It's how you argue or debate a certain topic.
Yep.
And fair fighting rules or things like that.
Yeah. Don't call people names.
Well,
That's the one my husband always is like, don't call name. Don't be, and name the action and not the person. Like that thing you did was whatever. When we fight.
was not okay.
When you and your husband fight.
Yeah, when we fight.
Not when we fight.
Not when you. Yeah, what happens when you two fight?
We don't fight.
We don't really fight.
There's times where like if we don't agree on something, we talk about like, well, tell me why. And oh, well, maybe we can address that thing over here to get to where we do agree. And sometimes the answer is, well, I think that's important, but not right now. So sometimes there's timing disagreements, but overall, I think we're pretty aligned with decisions that we have to make. And one thing we've learned about each other is certain things really matter to Tracy that don't really matter to me. So I'm comfortable letting her make those decisions and vice versa. Like, I don't even know, like a certain type of something in the office. If she really is like, I really, really like this type, great, fine. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me as long as it's there and we need it.
So a healthy partnership.
Yeah.
Between the two of you and respect and trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't know slamming doors. We've never slammed a door.
No, and our nature, our personalities aren't like that. Like we don't yell at people. We don't.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, we
I was really worried about that coming in here. Like, okay.
I mean, we hear that like certain workplaces, like yelling is normal.
Yes.
And door slamming and
emotional unsafety can be
Yeah.
common in a workplace.
I've heard that it's common at other places that managers throw paper clips across the desk at people. Like I've heard this at more than one.
paper clips.
Yeah,
Really?
like they're just sitting there and they just, like, I'm mad at you, and then you throw this paper clip across the desk.
A paper clip. Now I've heard of pencil.
Or a
did
binder
work
clip
somewhere
maybe
where a
is a little-
pencil got thrown at somebody, but I was not there. It was not me. I just heard about it.
Yeah, I would never throw a paper clip at someone. Ever.
I wouldn't throw anything. Yeah.
I wouldn't either. Mostly because I don't have great aim. So that's
It would be.
it'd be like a
ineffective.
cotton ball or something.
It would be not.
Like, ooh. No, that didn't work. But no, and that's really important though to note that not everybody gets along, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
We need different people. We need diverse experiences and all of those things that come into a workplace that make it unique and awesome. And we can all learn so much from each other.
Right.
And so that's what I always try to remind people of too. What can you learn from them? I know they drive you crazy, but what can you learn from them?
That's a good thing to keep in mind. Yeah. The other thing we've noticed as we've grown is not everybody does things exactly the same or the way that we do them. And if they're getting to the same spot and they're not doing it wrong, is that wrong? And at certain workplaces, I would think, yeah, it's wrong. If you don't follow steps 1 through 10 exactly the way you've been trained, that's wrong and you're not fitting in.
But is it ethical?
Yeah.
Is still following procedures?
Yeah.
For the most part, just their own way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody has kind of their way of doing things.
Yep.
I said in an episode, maybe one of my first 3 episodes of recording, it's been a while ago, but I got a lot of feedback on this. I said, honestly, my husband loves the dishwasher, and it used to drive me nuts the way that he loves the dish. You're nodding and like you're looking at me like I totally get you. And it used to drive me insane. And I'm like, no, like why are all these dishes in this? They could all fit in there, right? Like, we can make this work. And when I started to just turn away and say, you know what, the dishes are getting done.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how he does them. It really doesn't. If he wants to hand wash all of those, it doesn't matter. They're still getting done. And why am I trying to micromanage and control? Because I think I have the better way of doing it.
I'm sure
which I still do think I have the better way of doing it. However,
you don't want to do it all the time.
Absolutely not. And he's doing them. And if I pick at him,
he'll stop doing
he's going to stop doing them. Then I'm going to have to do them all the time. So I was like, wow, that was a really big epiphany for me. Like, wow, why do I care? Why do I care? If he, tucks in the top sheet when he makes the bed instead of it doesn't really matter.
Right.
It gets done. Yeah. So I also try to implement that with my kids.
Yes.
But they do tend to miss a lot of steps.
Yes.
But I hear that that's a practice that you have in your office too.
Yeah, for sure. At my house, it's how the food gets put back in the refrigerator.
Oh.
My husband thinks that there's certain spots in the refrigerator that certain food goes. And I just think it needs to get in the refrigerator. Mm-hmm. And he opens the door. He's like, oh my God, you've put everything away wrong. And I was like, I did. And then he's
guilty.
I'm like, yep. I said, you didn't put labels where the pickles are supposed to go and the whatever. Like, I don't care. It's in the refrigerator. And if you have a problem with it, you can fix it. So sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't.
Choose your battles. Yeah. And I love your honesty. Yes, I did. Yeah.
I did. I don't care.
I did. It's cool. That's the whole point of it being in the refrigerator.
I think one of the things on this topic is for the longest time as we hired new lawyers, I would say like, okay, the consultation is like the most important thing. Like you need to say things this way or make sure you say these 10 things. And, you recognize that people have their own style and you're like, oh, that was a cool thing you just said I've never heard before. Or like, yep, the way you said that totally was fine. Mm-hmm. And immediately, I backed off from that idea. Like, you guys go at it how you want in the consult. Obviously, everyone's story is very different. So these 10 things may not need to be said, versus these other 5 things to someone else. And so that sort of idea of micromanaging just is exhausting and totally unnecessary too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that it's, that consultation in our office is about making a connection. I think most of our clients probably forget 95% of what we actually say in the consult. It's just like, how do you feel with the connection and whether you want to hire our office. So
can you help them?
Yeah.
Can you help them? Because many of them are in distress.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. Do you have answers?
Yeah.
And can you bring some sort of peace or hope to their lives?
Right.
Because they're in crisis
in
one way or another.
Yeah,
for sure.
So it's a very important, but that connection, that humanness is so critical.
Yeah.
If you were to talk to yourself 10 years ago when you started this business, what advice would you give yourselves now after everything that you've learned these 10 years?
No one's ever asked that.
Ooh, I think I would not. So I was the person who fought like having written procedures. I was like, oh, things will just work out. And yes, they do for the most part. But as we were growing, we needed to have things written down. And I totally fought that. And I was like, oh, you're going to write all this stuff down. And then we're married to it.
And we're locked in.
Yes. Yeah. And if we mess up, someone can, but now I think that's one of our greatest strengths is we do have things written down and ways to do things and processes, procedures, policies, all of it.
Mm-hmm. And you understand the critical importance of having those.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what I would tell myself 10 years ago. I mean, I think it would be like, hold on for the ride because you're going to, like, this is going to be amazing and you're going to be proud in 10 years. And I I don't think that we didn't expect, this isn't surprising to me, where we are today, 10 years ago. I think this is what I foresaw. And I think Susan probably too, but I don't know, I probably pushed you a little bit more than.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know what I thought. I mean, I didn't know if we'd ever surpass maybe like 5 lawyers, probably because I was still like, well, with 5, we can still micromanage all of them.
Yeah.
And be in, total control.
And then you don't have to have policies and procedures written down because you're micromanaging.
Because it's a small thing and you can see what everyone's doing. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But, to have 20 total staff people, including the lawyers, is crazy.
And I think like really, truly, even after 10 years, like we're tested all the time, and so I think maybe that advice is like, you're not going to learn it all in 5 years and then be like, okay, now it's easy breezy from
autopilot.
Here.
Right.
Yeah. There are things that are still ever changing that we are learning that we have to go back and revise that policy or, do something to make it better.
Well, on the business end and on the law end.
Right.
Yes.
You have both of those that you have to keep up to date on, know all the new things that you have to be doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And neither one of you went to school for business.
I did.
You did?
Uh-huh.
Oh, you did business before law?
I have a business management degree from undergrad.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
So I
so you
love
had
it.
a little bit, you had that kind of experience. A lot of attorneys I know
Right.
don't have that business, and also physicians as well. They don't have the business piece of it.
Yeah.
And they're like, I went to school for this and I know how to do this really well.
Right.
But I don't know how to necessarily run a business.
Yeah. And
So
I
that's
think,
actually wonderful. I should have asked that.
yeah, for our office, like, as a doctor, yeah, maybe you can just go in and do surgery. But in our office, like, you can't just go into trial. You have to get the clients first. They need to like you. You need to advertise for more. Then you need to do, performance reviews of your staff. And then you can go do surgery, and do a
Well, and the
trial.
word of mouth, and performing and doing a great job and building rapport very quickly.
Yeah.
In very high emotional states.
Dealing with negative online reviews, that's what I am like 10 years ago. Tell me the best way to do that, especially when you're dealing with people in crisis and you're like, I did everything I could for you. But our answer is you just ask for 10 good ones to push it down, But we also realize that, negative reviews legitimize our business too. And it's those types of things like you can't be scared about that.
No.
Yeah.
And it's one person's experience
Yeah.
versus everyone else.
Yeah. And perception. Yeah.
Perception is reality.
And some people just never would be happy. Just never, you know?
Or in 5 years, they look back and read that review and think, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I did that.
Right.
I was in such a dark place.
Yeah.
And I would never do that. Can I delete it?
Yeah.
Ooh, maybe we should
We should go
bag
back.
the oldest ones and send the person an email. Would you please delete this now?
Yeah.
Hasn't enough time passed.
Do you still hate us? Yeah. Do we still not serve you very well?
Who are you?
Yeah.
They're like, what?
People move on. They do.
People do. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much for being on today, giving us some tips and experience share, because I know there's other people out there listening that want to start their own business, that have started their own business, want to grow a business.
Yeah.
And even in that female entrepreneur realm, we're getting up there.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yes. Have a great one.
Thanks.
Bye.